Hello everyone. I want to begin this week like I do every week, giving some shout outs to some people that maybe are working behind the scenes that I just want to call them out for us. First is Mary Schweigert and Ashley Rosenberger, who are working in health services, and all the work they're doing, most of it behind the scenes, to not only make sure we're doing things in healthy and appropriate ways, but to protect us. And so Ashley and Mary, thanks for everything you're doing. It doesn't go unnoticed, and we're appreciative of everything that you do on a daily, almost hourly basis for us. Another team that I want to mention to us is our RDs and RAs and our Res Life staff, and the way that they have gone above and beyond the first 2 weeks of this semester, again, in just trying to make sure that we're all doing this together, that we understand what community is, in leading small groups in their living areas, and everything that Res Life is doing to create the experience in the community that we have here at Olivet. Just want to say thanks to you. And then really it goes without saying, I haven't overlooked them, but the faculty here and all the extra work and the hoops that they're jumping through, I want to thank our faculty for the way that you are navigating and leading us, or have led us through the first 2 weeks of the semester, and we look forward to the way you're going to do that for the rest of the semester. Well, Jesus talked a lot, speaking of his parables, about the importance of listening and hearing, seeing and understanding. So it must have been pretty important to him. But listening and hearing are two different things. So like when Terry's watching TV in the living room and I go in to join her, I usually have to ask her to turn the TV up a little bit. Her hearing is a little better than mine. And so when I enter the room, matter of fact, more times than not, she'll look at me and ask me if I can hear it. And so we adjust the volume for me, because hearing, I've got 50% hearing in my left ear, and so it just helps to have the volume up a little bit. But hearing and listening are two different things. So when Terry's having a conversation with me, when we're talking about something, if there's something else going on in the room, if the TV's on, if somebody walks by our front porch, anything that, I can be distracted by almost anything. I can hear what she's saying, but how many of us have heard this from a spouse or a parent? Did you listen to what I just said? Listening and hearing are two different things, just like seeing and understanding are two different things as well. So can you hear me? Can you hear me? Amidst the noise, the movement, the distractions that are out here, can you hear me? Are you listening to me? Because there's a difference. There's always noise. There are always distractions around us all the time. And the reason why Jesus says listening and understanding are keys to following his way, to live in the way of Jesus when it comes to being people of the kingdom, is because the distractions and the noise are all around us. I remember when I was in high school, I played basketball. I wasn't a star. I just need a little disclaimer there, but I did play. And when I would play in a gym, northern Michigan, Reed City, there were 2,000 fans that would pack into that gym every Tuesday and Friday night, because there's not a whole lot more to do in northern Michigan on a Tuesday or Friday night. But we had a good basketball team too. But amidst the crowd and the fans and the roar, I could hear my dad's voice. When he would yell at me, when he would admonish me, when he would cheer for me, or scold me for something that I did wrong on the court, which dads have a tendency to do, I could hear his voice above all the other voices. It's just like when I was a kid growing up and my dad used to whistle for me to come in for dinner. I could distinguish his whistle or his call from the other whistles and calls that were out there. Because here's why. I learned to distinguish my dad's voice in the quiet, in the silence, in the moments when we were by ourselves. So when we were then out in the midst of distraction or in a crowd, I could still hear his voice. I could still distinguish his voice and what he was saying to me. Jesus said, "My sheep know my voice." Hearing and listening, seeing and understanding are key. It is the journey we're on this semester. And if you read Matthew 13 along with me, every day throughout this semester. Several times in that chapter, I talked about it in chapel last week, but several times in that chapter, Jesus talks about the importance of listening and seeing, beginning the first parable by saying, listen up, hear this, pay attention. Amidst all the noise and distraction around us, there are other voices that are clamoring for your attention. There are things happening behind me and all around me, even now, that are clamoring, crying out for our attention, trying to distract us, trying to distract you from my voice, from the things that I'm saying. Life is no different. It's why Jesus time and time again in the 13th chapter of Matthew says listening is important, understanding is important, because in order to live in the way of Jesus, listening is key. So on our journey this semester, one of the things that we're going to try and focus in on, one of the things that we're going to try and lean into is distinguishing the voice of our Father, our Heavenly Father, from all the other voices calling around us, whether we're in a crowd or by ourselves, because here's the thing that you need to know. We learn to hear His voice amidst the distractions. We learn to hear His voice amidst the crowd. We learn to hear His voice out there when we also learn how to distinguish His voice, because the times we spend in silence and in quiet, listening to the ways His voice is speaking to us. Dallas Willard says this: just because you don't hear the voice of God doesn't mean He isn't speaking. This semester, as we continue to unpack the parables that Jesus tells us, these stories that help us to understand what His kingdom is all about, the invitation is there for us to listen so we can hear, to see so we can understand. And in that, with everything else that's happening in this cultural moment, COVID, social unrest, the racism that obviously is right below the surface, and all the injustice that is a part of our culture that is revealing to us again who we are in the midst of all that. As people of faith, as people seeking to live in the way of Jesus, as we listen to His voice, He leads us in the ways that He wants for us to go. He leads us to do the things that He longs for us to do, to respond to each other the way He longs for us to respond to each other. May we listen and understand in our hearts so we can live fully in the way of Jesus this semester. Grace and peace.